What separates human culture from Stelan culture in general is scale. Now, when we talk about scale, we can talk about scale of technology, we can talk about scale of spirituality, we can talk about scale of evolution. So let me use an example of scale. Let us say that a race of people is 1 million years ahead of us. Now, if a culture, a race of beings that is more advanced than us, lives 1 million years, 1 million years. So if we break that down into 100,000 year blocks, every 100,000 years, that's a tenth of their lifespan, right? The culture lives 1 million years. Now they live 1 million years because they live at a certain frequency, they exist, they're made out of certain technology. They have a certain synthetic level of synthetic engineering. They live for 1 million years. Now compare an advanced culture that lives 1 million years to a culture that lives 100 years. Human culture, human beings live 100 years. At best, lifespan is probably 80s, 80, 81, 82, 83 in most developed countries. So let's say 100 years. So human culture lives 100 years. That means that you have 100 years to achieve certain things, and then you're gone. And then it's the next generation that's 100 years to achieve certain things. And so you have this is the evolutionary scale, the steps of evolution versus 1 million years. I have 1 million years to do what I need to do. So we'll talk about why that's important in a second. And one of the things is you can only do so many things in 100 years, and you can do a lot more in 1 million. Or if time didn't matter to you, right? If you lived 1 million years, you're immortal, and so you're no longer constrained by time. Now you can also live 1 million years if you can control time, if you can control the flow of time, which comes to technology. So you don't have to be a technological being, but you have to be able to control the flow of time. The flow of time, you can extend your lifespan to 1 million years. Now I'm using this example just to illustrate scale, because we can go to different ages. So you have 1 million years versus 100 years, right? So 100 years. So let's, in terms of this comparison, 100,000 years is like 10 years. So I'm 10 years old after 100,000 of our years, right? Of our years, I'm 10 years old on the million year scale. How many lives have gone through during the 100,000 years? Right? We are 10 years old. We haven't even reached puberty on this scale at 100,000 years, and yet on Earth planet, you know, the modern humans have only been around for maybe 40,000 years. The Neanderthal, maybe a couple 100,000, right? A couple 100,000 years. So we're still, you know, 10 or 20 years old. The entire race of humans, according to this scale. So what does that mean? It means that in the 200,000 years on Earth, we have achieved so much. because each lifespan is 100 years. And it used to be a lot less. It used to be a lot less before the developed countries in medicine and food, right? The industrialization shifted things forward. Now, a culture that lives 1,000,000 years, well, they're still in their 20s, and the human race is basically it's gone through many rounds of evolution. So this is the fast-paced evolution, and this is the slow scale of evolution. So if you take a look at every 50,000 years on Earth, in the 1,000,000-year comparison, is like 5 years. So every 5 years. So imagine yourself 5 years, how many things you can do, right, in 5 years. And then imagine that that's equivalent to 50,000 years on another planet, right? Let's take that scale now. Let's say our planet is at the high scale, right? The 100 years is at like 1,000,000, and another planet is at the 100-year scale. So whatever we accomplish in 5 years takes that planet 50,000 years. You see how I'm scaling? This is advanced time scale, humans, and let's say there are other planets. So while the advanced race can go about whatever they want, we are seeing this growth, development, and evolution on a much slower scale. So these cultures can visit the Earth. If they visit the Earth every 5 of their years, it's like, right, every 5 years they come to Earth, it's equivalent to 50,000 years. If they come here every year of their year, the 1,000,000 scale, it's, it's 1,000 years or something. It's 1,000 years. So every year they have a mission, right? Every year you may have a mission to go to a developing planet, and it's like 1,000 years. What have they done for the last 1,000 years? We gave them technology, we gave them ideas, we gave them science, we gave them education. What have they done? That's the scale of evolution. Now, so why can an advanced race that lives 1,000,000 years, why can they be called advanced? Because they have more time and more technology to do things. So if you wanted to build a planet and it took you 50,000 years to build a planet, if it took you 100,000 or 200,000 years to build a planet, well, I have 1,000,000 years. I spent 200,000 years to build a planet, to watch it grow, to modulate its growth, to build a climate, to build an atmosphere, right? You have that time, because either you can control time or you're immune to time. You live as long as you want, and then that's it, you move on. They're basically immortal, or they're timeless, or they don't care about time. They're beyond time, because that's what makes them advanced. So it's hard for the human to understand that scale, because we're still stuck on this lower evolution. We don't think in those terms. We don't think that somebody could live 1,000,000 years, because we think in biological terms, and we haven't mastered time. But imagine we developed a machine to modulate time. And let's say we can extend the human life from 100 to 300 years by modulating time. That would have profound effects on everything. Because now, in terms of procreation, when do you procreate? When do you get married? When do you have children? Do you have children? You have 300 years. I have 300 years, right? I don't hit puberty until, what's that, 50. You hit puberty at 50. I got 50 years of youth. And then I've got 200 years of life. Imagine what I could do for 200 years. Well, you can do research, you can invent new sciences, you can travel off planet. You can travel off planet for 50 years, 100 years. And when you come back, you're still young enough to fulfill your obligation. All of a sudden, although not immortal, we have now changed our scale. And we've changed our scale of thinking. Because now again, if your child is born and you say, son, daughter, you're going to live to 300. What do you want to do with your life? All of a sudden, you're not thinking so small anymore. Now you're thinking, gee, I can do anything. What am I going to do? I'd love to go to Mars. That could take me 50 years to build a ship. I got lots of time. I could spend my youth building a spaceship or a new propulsion system. I can do research and develop a new science. We can do research, we can do development, we can discover new things, we can invent new computers. You know, all of a sudden everything starts to change. And that's what's happened with these advanced races, is that through their evolution, their development, they've conquered things like time. Time is one thing. This is just one scale. Another thing, we can talk about scale, we talk about small things. So we talk about size. So scale, I've talked about, they can build a planet. Well, we build cars, we build towers, right? Office towers. Well, they build planets, they build moons, because they have the time and they have the scale of the technology. But they also can miniaturize. They can miniaturize their technology. So you look at DNA. DNA is nanoscale. It's a coding system for human life. Somebody created it, somebody designed it, somebody engineered DNA. So someone took a super large program, right? A hardware, software system. They built it out. They spent 100,000 years building it out. Then they shrank it down into the nanoscale. Then they engineered a nucleus and a cell, and they created life because they have the time to do it. And they understand scale. They can build moons and planets because they have the time and they have the technology. And then they can also create things like life, miniature, right? They can miniaturize. Through technology, they can miniaturize. And they can also expand. You could build a small planet and then expand it into a larger planet and then put it into orbit, if you had the technology to do that. So you don't have to build a full-size planet. You could build a miniature, and then you put it in space, and then you expand it. You could take a full-size planet, you could shrink it down, you can re-engineer it, and then you could put it back and then expand it. So that's technology, scale. So what makes advanced races advanced is scale, that they can do these things. Either through technology they can do it, or they can do it through some other means. So they can, right? This is the scale. And it's what separates human beings from star beings is that we are not able to go to their level of thinking. So even now that I talk about planets, make a small scale planet, put it into orbit, and then expand it, there are people saying, well, that's not possible. That guy is just making stuff up. But you look at DNA, well, it's miniature scale, it's nanoscale. It wasn't made, it didn't naturally grow that way. And you would never make a supercomputer at the nanoscale. Because it's just an impossible place to work in. It's a small scale. You would make it a normal scale and then you shrink it down. You could repair it at the nanoscale, but the engineering of it would be done, right? The engineering of it would be done at normal scale. The fact that we have moons and planets and different kinds of moons and planets is evidence that some of those planets were engineered. Stars, from my understanding and my connection to star beings, stars are engineered. But how old is a star? Our star is about 5 billion years old. And then in another 5 billion, it's going to die out. Well, that's a technology. So 5 billion years. In our scale, because we only live 100 years, right? We have 5 fingers, we live 100 years. That shapes our perception of reality. That shapes our view of existence. That shapes our science and ability. But the advanced races don't have that limitation. They don't think on the 5-finger math scale. You know, the 9th dimension. Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Whoa, that's pretty high. 9 out of 10. 9th dimension. In their scale, there's endless dimensions. There's no count to the dimensions from the star being scale, because they could create new dimensions. There's no fixed level of dimensions. There may be fixed protocols, how to build a dimension, what constitutes a dimension, but there's no fixed dimension. But in a 5-finger human scale, there's 9th dimension is really big, right? Ooh, I come from the 9th dimension. A planet, if a planet, our planet is 4.5 billion years old. Well, they're saying, well, how are they? Is there a race that's 4.5 billion years old? Well, if a race is 1 billion years old, and they can build a star, a source of energy, it's basically a ball of energy. We can create energy, right? We have electricity, we have nuclear power plants. Well, a star is just like an advanced nuclear power plant. Or is it hydrogen? Or is it helium? Right? It's chemical. It's a power plant. The power plant powers our star system. Without the sun, there's no life on Earth. So if you can build a planet, you have to be able to build a star. So you build a star, and that creates the system, and then you build your planets. Well, people say, well, the planets were created by interstellar gas and particles and through this centrifugal forces. That could also be part of the process, right? That could also be part of the process. That may not be the whole process. So races, advanced races, can build planets. Now, when you build something, even a planet, there's a certain ownership, right? There's a certain ownership to what you build. If I build a car, that's my car. I own the car. And then if you want the car I built, you have to buy it, right? There's a contract. You buy it. If I build a house, if I'm a house builder, I own the house until I sell it to you. You live in the house when you own it, and then you sell the house to somebody else. And then you sell the house, and the house is owned by multiple tenants. Cars are owned by multiple owners. Planets, if I build a planet and I sell it to somebody, they own it. I made it, and they own it. And then they sell it to somebody, and they own it. Scale. We're talking about scale. I'm talking about scale. Now, because we don't know or believe you could build a planet, if I say this planet has been sold, you say that's pretty strange. That's way out there. Because you don't agree that some race, some advanced race can build a planet. You don't agree that a billion-year-old culture built a star system. Now, they die out. After a billion years, they die out. But they built the stars. They built some planets. Now, they're gone. Maybe they're gone. But the star is there. That's their fingerprints. You say, well, are there advanced races? How advanced are star being? The star, the sun, somebody built it. That's their remnant. That's their technology. It's way beyond anything we can do. And we often think because we can't do it, nobody else can. Well, who said that? You live on a planet that's got a perfect ecosystem. It has water to drink. It has food. It has oxygen. The exact amount of oxygen you need to stay alive is in the air. Because someone built it. This is my understanding, and this is the way I see things, because I see the different scale. That doesn't mean I live for 1,000,000 years. I live, hopefully we'll get to the 90s. But I'm saying star beings, they operate at a different scale. Stars, suns, planets, moons can be built. Bases on these planets can be built. Starships, of course, spaceships, motherships, they have these ships. Portals, star portals, time travel. All of these things are in there, or on their menu, right? Or in their tool shed, their toolbox, which we don't have, unless it's a science fiction movie. By the same token, you get that large scale, but you get the small scale. You got nanotechnology. You have things like DNA. You have things like molecules. What if molecules were a technology? You have atoms. What if all of that is technology? It was engineered. You have chemicals, you have oxygen, hydrogen, this chemical formula. What if all of those are like, you know, programs? Someone created it, created the materials. So you have all these chemicals, chemical elements, right? Elements. What if they create these smaller scale elements because they have the time, because they're not privy to time, because they're timeless. They're timeless because they control time. They could look like you and me. They could look like you and me, but because they control time, they can exist in a timeless dimension. Or they can live in a dimension that they live for 200,000 of our years. And that dimension could be right alongside us. So they live for 200,000 years because the flow of time is modulated. And we live, in 200,000 years, we've gone through from Neanderthal to modern human. Right? So, you know, the 200,000 years, they've lived one life. And in our scale, we've gone from Neanderthal to modern human, massive evolution. So when their child is born, they go, hey, look, the humans, they're not doing too bad now. Maybe in another couple of hundred, by the end of my life, there'll be another 200,000 years. Scale. Scale is a difficult subject. I agree. I agree it's difficult, and I understand that people want proof. But what I'm saying, I often say that the proof is right there. DNA is evidence that an advanced race, an advanced group of scientists were here. That's my proof. My proof is DNA, that it's a nanoscale software and hardware. It's very advanced, that someone built it, and it wasn't humans. And that's inside of you, and it gives you life. That's proof. The proof is you're alive. It gives you life. It's DNA. You have genes. That is proof. That is called evidence. That's called hard evidence, because it's evidence in motion. It's right here. You can see it. Scientists have proven there's DNA. What I'm adding to that, I'm saying that someone engineered it, and to do that, they're more advanced. Again, you want evidence. The sun, I am saying that some race of beings built it 4.5 or 5 billion years ago. They may have died out. They may have lived 1 billion years. But they built it. And some other race came by and built the planets. That's my evidence. My evidence is there. The sun. Wake up in the morning and the sun rises. Somebody built it. You didn't build it. I didn't build it. Somebody built it. It's very advanced. The planet, you look at the planet, right? The planet, we live on a planet that the air we need to breathe is found all over the planet because of an atmosphere. A perfect atmosphere. The pH balance of the human body fluctuates from 0 to 14 or 12. And 7, pH 7 is the perfect level, so that if the environment became too acidic or too alkaline, we would die off. And there's a very small variance in the pH, right? The acidity level. If that acidity level shifts by I think it's 1 point, 1 point high or 1 point low, we are in trouble. And for hundreds of thousands of years, it's been very steady. Food, we need food. The food is found in our environment. People say it's accident. People say it was put there by some divine being. Well, I'm saying it was all engineered, right? We need water to drink. there's water. There's clean water. There's running water. We need water to wash. We can wash ourselves with the water. We drink water. We cleanse water. We celebrate with water. We swim in the water. Yeah, right? You can drink it. You can wash with it. You can swim with it. It's a technology. Food is perfect. We need food. We need fruits and vegetables. Well, we find fruits and vegetables. They grow in the soil. You put it in the soil and it grows. All of this is not an accident. It's what I'm saying. I'm saying it was engineered by very advanced engineers who can create this very high level of synthetic life. Right? In a perfectly kept atmosphere as we orbit around the sun at 60,000 miles an hour or whatever. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Scale.